Perform several additions to evaluate expressions. So let me give an example, and from there we'll be working it out. So example, an example I'm going to give you is to evaluate give you negative 4 plus 7, which is a positive 7, plus negative 13 plus 3. Okay, that's the expression given. Now, to evaluate expressions of this form that contain several additions, we make repeated use of rules for adding two integers. So we add them 2 by 2 by 2. All right. Now, our strategy here, since there are no calculations within parentheses, no exponential expressions, and no multiplication or division, we'll perform the additions working from our left towards our right. This is the left going towards our right. So let's start. So I'm going to change the colors to show the ones that I'm working at that time. So the first ones I'm going to be working with is with negative 4 plus 7. That's the part that I'm going to be working in this expression. Not to say we cannot work it everything at once, but let's start piece by piece. So let me zoom in there so you can see it much bigger. A little bigger. Okay. So there. So now I'm working with negative 4 plus 7. So negative 4 plus 7, using the rules for adding two integers that have different signs. We have a negative 4 plus 7, that is going to give us 3. So we come to the next step, and that is now 3 here, and we're going to be adding it to the negative 13 plus 3. Now note carefully that we will be working now with positive 3 plus negative 13. This is the piece we will be working with right now. Okay, use the rules for adding two integers that have different signs again. That is positive and this negative. So when we work this out, we end with a value of negative 10. So that's our value here, negative 10 plus 3 equals, now use the rules for adding two integers that have different signs again, and that is going to give us negative 7, and that's our solution. All right, so let's go over it again. Using the rules for adding two integers that have different signs, we look at negative 4 and 7, so those two there, and we end up with positive 3. Then we work again two integers that have different signs, the addition of it, we end up with negative 10. Then two integers that have different signs again, we end up with negative 7. And that's our solution for that one there. Now, the properties of addition here, as you can see, we can say that the rules for addition, or the properties of addition, are also true for integers. No matter how you may shift them or which one you add it first, you will still get back the same solution. All right, so let me write those two properties here. These are known as the commutative property of addition, which is the order in which integers are added does not change their sum. 2. Associative property, and this is of addition. Okay, the way in which integers our group does not change their sum. Okay, so when you work this problem, I want you to show me step by step how you're going down. All right, you could have grouped them all positive, all negative together, add them, and then just combine them if you wanted. So that's up to you, but nevertheless keep structure in your calculations. All right, so now let's go to our next example. In our next example, okay, I'm going to give you to use the commutative property here. Use this commutative property or the associative property of addition to help evaluate the expression. All right, so let's see how we're going to work this out. So if we're going to use the commutative property or the associative property, then we will be grouping them depending which one we want to use. So use the commutative and or associative property of addition. Now why did I put and or? Because you will decide when you're working this type of problems which one you find much easier to work with. Okay, there's no rule that you must use the associative property or the commutative property. You will decide that depending how you see the problem, the expression. And the expression, we're going to use the same problem as before. Negative 4 plus 7 plus negative 13 plus 3. Our strategy here is to use the commutative or associative property of addition so that we can add the positive and the negatives separately. Alright, so let's add the positive and the negative separately. Then we will add those results to obtain their final answer. Why? Because it is easier to add integers that have the same sign, integers that okay. So if we add everything of the same type, in other words, it's much easier. Okay, so let's go. Because we are working by grouping them or in other words, you can say we'll put all negatives together. So we put here negative 4 plus negative 13, and then we put the plus 7 plus 3. Okay, so when we do that, now we look at them. These two negatives here will combine to give us negative 17, and then these two positive will give us combine to give us here 10. Okay, so now look at them. We have a negative and we have a positive. All right, so we have grouped them negatives and we have grouped all positive. So we end up with negative here and we end up positive here. Now the next step, we go and we use the rule for adding two integers that have the same the same sign here, give us to this. In other words, just summarizing it. Okay, now use the rules for adding two integers now that have different signs, because this is negative, this is positive, and the result will be then negative 7 plus negative 17 plus 10 give us a negative 7, and that's the solution that we had gotten from the previous problem. Okay, so remember, if you have expressions of this form, group all negatives if you want to, all positives, and then work with negatives and work with positive, and then the final step will be where you have two different signs. You apply the rules for adding two integers with two different signs. This one here is because it's easier to add two negatives and two positives together. Combine them, it's much easier. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, and this next one here, let's put it to be example. Put evaluate. Let's put a bracket. Negative 24 plus negative 3 close bracket plus negative 15 plus 4. Okay, now we'll perform the addition within brackets and the addition with the parentheses first. So let's do this addition here first, and as well as this one here, so we can work them together at the same time. So let's put this paper here a little bit more. So our steps, because we have the same sign and we're adding two like signs, then the result will be negative. So that's a negative. Negative 24 plus a negative 3 will give us negative 27. Now here we have two different signs. So now we'll bring down our plus here. Negative 15 plus 4, that gives us negative 11. This is adding two integers that have different signs. Now we can end up with two integers that may have the same sign, or they may have different signs likewise. In this case, both of them have same sign, so our result will be of the same sign. Then we just add the two numbers, giving us 38, and that's our solution for that one there. So let me go over this one here. Add within each pair of grouping. This is a grouping, this is a grouping in this case. You can say because it is low negatives within brackets, parentheses. Likewise here, we have two different signs, so we work with that piece there. Alright? And then we just do our calculations. And then at this step here, you may have two different signs, but don't worry about that. You go back to this rule here and add two integers with two different signs, or two integers that have the same sign, and we end up with our result.